What am I to do?
Welcome to He Said, She Said Razor Branding Podcast with Michael Russo and Jaci Russo. To learn more about how to improve your brand, visit brandrusso.com.
Hi, welcome to He Said, She Said Razor Branding Podcast. I think that this might be Michael's new best friend, Greg Brooks.
Greg was awesome. And I didn't want to say anything earlier because I didn't want to just sound weird. But tell me, who did he look like to you? Come on.
Sean.
Because I get jealous.
Oh, JT?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. I can see that. Sure.
I mean, come on, really?
Yeah. No, yeah. Okay. I totally see it.
Yeah.
Totally
glasses, like the whole bit. Yeah. I mean, I was like, oh my God, it's my new best friend, JT.
For those of you who don't know, Michael has an almost unnatural obsession with Justin Timberlake. It borders my relationship with Taylor Swift, so it's okay.
No, but hey. I like his music, and he,
Michael, everybody needs a Roman Empire.
Although
everybody is a part of a geek something. It's cars, it's hunting, it's sports, it's Taylor Swift. Whatever your community is, it's okay.
To be clear, I'm not an NSYNC fan because when it comes to that, it's
Backstreet Boys.
I'm a Backstreet guy.
I know.
So, but the solo career was good.
Correct. How did you just manage to say Backstreet without singing it? Because I've only ever heard you sing it.
They're good. Anyway, I think we've.
I'm waiting. Come on, give me a little Backstreet's all right. Come on.
We're not doing that. Not doing that. I share way too much as it is in this world. So yeah, I did enjoy Greg, and it wasn't. And again, we've talked about SEO before. I think what was cool about him though, it was how that world has evolved, because I think everybody deals with SEO. Everybody hears the word. Everybody thinks they understand it. They don't know how relevant it is. But he talked about how the different pieces of that world can affect everybody, and how important it still is, and how relevant it is. And then we went on some other tangents about branding through SEO and how the importance of those things, and very similar thoughts on that. And yeah, like I said, I enjoyed the talk, and I thought he did a great job of representing himself. I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned for how to represent yourself, I think, and how he talked about his company. He had some great messaging points, and it was just impressive to hear that. Like, obviously, he's well messaged, or he's just good at that. I don't know. You're pretty good at that too. Some people are just naturals at it, but he every time we talked about his company and what they did, he did a way of explaining it that wasn't like, oh, we're just an SEO company. No, he said it in words that were unique to them, and I thought it was meaningful.
Well, he's on message. He's on brand, and he is the chief marketing officer of the company. So I would expect him to be able to rattle it off more so than maybe somebody who's just in the tech side.
Is that what a CMO stands for?
Chief Marketing Officer. Yes. Welcome to our industry.
I'm joking. I knew what that meant.
You looked back at the screen and read it again just to be sure. But okay, I'll give it to you.
I didn't see his title until just now, though.
Partner and CMO. And I'm going to give his official introduction, because the people need to understand the pearls of wisdom that he's about to be dropping. So today we welcome Greg Brooks to the show. He's a partner and chief marketing officer at SearchTides, an SEO agency at the forefront of digital marketing. Greg's work is instrumental in shaping the future of effective SEO, utilizing large language models, navigating the AI era of the internet, which, by the way, side note, when y'all hear him rattle off how he does prompts, so impressive. He's collaborated with industry giants like Home Depot, Zillow, Western Union, and FanDuel. Welcome, Greg.
Oh, thanks so much for having me on, Jaci and Michael. Nice to hang with both of you.
Well, I'm excited, Greg. I think that, when I think about the value of SEO and how AI is going to kind of help us or disrupt us or totally screw us all up, Michael's definitely has an opinion about that that's a little different than mine. But I love when we can get in and talk about kind of the nuts and bolts of how people can better utilize the opportunities online. I feel like we went through the flash days, and then it became kind of these brochure websites. And now people are like, oh, wait, I'm supposed to do more with it than that. So I'd love to hear your insight. Where do you see the trends? Where do you think we're heading in that area?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'd first always recommend being polite to AI. I think it's a great mental hedge.
I talk about it all the time. And I don't know if you're talking about what I'm talking about, but the other day, Jaci, as a Tesla, and I was fussing at the car. Then I realized I need to be careful, because one day when the machines rise up, they're gonna remember all this stuff. They have better memories than we do. So it's gonna be like, remember you were kind of sassing me the other day, and I'm gonna have to pay for that. So I don't know if that's what you're talking about, but that's my conspiracy theory for the future.
That's specifically what I'm talking about. I have a friend who I gave him, because, my ChatGPT Pro account, and my wife told me the other day, she was like, Eric is not being nice with his prompts, and you should say something to him. And I was like, yo, dude, you can't be like sharp like that to this thing. But anyways, no, that's definitely one way that you can use it as a way to, see how far in the process you get killed by AI. But ultimately, I think what we can do in the meantime is use these tools to supplement our skill sets and our efforts. And so I'll give a couple examples of how we think about that. I usually go broad first in these conversations, but as soon as I was persuaded Jackie with nuts and bolts, I immediately was like, details sounds good, let's do it.
I can't help it, Greg. That's just where I go, but I do like a broad picture. So it's your train, man. We're just on the tracks.
Okay, great. Well, we're about to fly on some tracks. So I guess if I was to kind of summarize how I think about AI in marketing, and then zoom into specifically SEO, and then wrap out how this all affects consumers and really commerce in the future, I would say that ultimately, what I think AI has, first of all, AI is just fancy prompts. Like, it is still humans dictating, make a left turn, walk 10 paces, make a right turn, but it's really great at walking, and it can turn potentially better than you can. So, but ultimately it's still something that we're in the driver's seat for until we basically get AGI. And this is, by the way, true even for hedge funds using algorithms to try to generate strategies in the market and predictability matrices and stuff. So this is happening at all levels already. And so we are potentially empowered, if we choose to see it that way as individuals here, through this technology, because it's allowing us to do more. What it is not is, it's not a substitute for our own experience and expertise, which are actually two really important concepts that I'll talk about a little bit more in the zoomed in component. But ultimately, 1 to 5 people can now have the output of 10 to 30 people. And that has implications in business. It has implications in commerce. It has implications for consumer choice in the future, aka you're going to get a lot more of it. And it also means that you are being amplified as opposed to your knowledge being replaced. Your informational Encyclopedia Britannica knowledge is gone, and presenting that as if it is valuable to someone is gone. That's no longer at the forefront. And that's something where people talk about top of funnel traffic in SEO and in search. And I think that's a valid concern. But ultimately, the future at SearchTides, which is a hub for all things SEO, search, the future of commerce. And we think that we have the foundational layer of SEO, which was all the blocking and tackling that you're used to with SEO, link building, content creation, all that fun stuff. And we're now in the influence era, which is a heavy note on experience and expertise, which I'll touch on. The future of SEO, ironically, we're calling the human era, because there's going to be so much AI content online. What happens when ChatGPT 10.0 exists? It's going to write good content at the click of a button. It's inevitable. And so how do you stand out and win in that world? And what resonates with your fellow humans? That's why the future is the human era.
I love that. I mean, Michael, is that not the best, most concise explanation of it that we've heard yet?
Yeah, I'm a little skeptical on his optimistic view of the AI revolution. No, I'm just joking. It's
that's totally cool. We should be skeptical, because we're so self-aware of the implications of what's being developed. And I will also say, Michael, I make no commentary and I hold any idea what will happen after, if we hit AGI. Like, I'm out. In term prediction, Greg is out. And as soon as we hit that, I couldn't tell you what's going to happen. But I do think right now, I think if you go through history, you basically see every technological revolution doing two things. And I'm going to be honest with the second one. So the first thing that it does is it moves society up Maslow's hierarchy of needs in some capacity, and it does so through the complete destruction of certain industries every single time. Agricultural abilities that we have just like destroyed mom and pop farmers. The Industrial Revolution, all of a sudden, like everything was factorized. When you had trains come in and pave the entire way, like that changed transportation. The car came around, that probably was going to kill the transportation industry. Computers came around, that was probably going to kill a lot of different industries. All of a sudden, what's the number one largest industry in the world? The IT industry, which didn't exist prior to computers. So it's really easy to see where we're going to lose from. It's way more challenging to see where we're going to gain from. With that being said, technology also, at this point, we're pretty self-aware. It's kind of just being used by a smaller group of people to further their own means and to make money. And that seems to be the primary driver historically. And so I think that there's a lot of valid skepticism of how it could play out, because it's not necessarily, technology is neutral, but it's who's got their hands on it, and what are their purposes and what's their goals.
Well, and Jaci, we talk a lot about that, and I'm not to get on a tangent of AI, and it seems like it's one of those things that just keeps coming up. There's no way to avoid it. It's a conversation in everything. No matter what subject you're talking about, AI is part of it, right? It's taken over our consciousness in a way because of the newness of it, and I use it. It's exciting, and some of it's just so cool. My fear, though, and Jaci kind of tries to talk me off the ledge and says, the automobile, the factories, all these things have changed the world constantly. And I agree with all that. And that is evolution. That is change, right? But what none of those things have done was challenge our humanity, and our souls kind of thing. And as far as from a creative endeavor, like who we are as people, being able to go from a horse to a car and the computers and all these things have been changes, right? And they have changed industries, and they have lost industries and gained industries through it. But again, that's my concern. Like I said, you said, pretty soon we'll be able to hit a button and it'll write prompts and it'll do these things. And it's doing that now. Right now, it's kind of a lot of mediocrity. So it's good, but it's not great, and so that we haven't got there yet. Will it get there? Yeah, I'm sure it will. It'll be unrecognizable. I mean, for artists will have to, right now it looks like you can almost spot an AI art from a mile away. Eventually it'll get better, and it'll be like, okay, I don't know what's the difference between this and that. I mean, even TV shows now, they have preambles that come up and they'll say the following was filmed by, a human audience, or whatever.
Right. Yeah. Recorded in front of a live audience.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's kind of where we're at with that. As far as like, with SEO and technology and being able to move faster and do more and have it in the hands of more people, I think it's great. It's just, what is it? Spider-Man. I said this the other day, but it's in with great power comes great responsibility, who's driving that train and who's putting the govern on it, and right now it seems like it's just a speeding train, so.
Let me ask you a question, Michael. What is the purpose of humanity? Like, what is our core purpose as people, as humans?
Oh man, it's a Monday, Greg. That's
okay. I'll just answer it. It's probably not to work. It's probably not to work. And so now we have. It's my own belief is that it's to experience. It's to experience life and blah 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 whatever. But it's probably not to work. And so here we have technology that's emerging that has the potential to change our interaction with this thing, with work, that we've been told through soft and hard people saying it, that like this is kind of the thing that's supposed to be the thing that represents us as individuals and collectively as a society. When we talk about progress and we talk about evolution, then we stick things like, economic evolution and GDP on top of it. You're like, that's getting away, in my opinion, from humanity. While at the same time, I'll say, like capitalism has created the greatest standard of living ever in the world. And also it is a deeply flawed structure. So I just look at all of this stuff as incremental progress towards our own goals as a society of, and I'll go off of Maslow's hierarchy again, of self-actualization. And it's really just like having the freedom to do the things that are interesting to us, that we choose to experience. And AI could provide an avenue to make that happen for more people. I'm definitely not an AI advocate, by the way. I don't even know how much I like technology, to be honest. But like the reality is like we as a society, we interact with it. And so therefore it's good for me to at least understand and have some views about what exactly is all this stuff is going on.
Yeah, no, and I agree. I mean, like I said, I tend to be on the glass half empty sometimes on those things, but and I'm selfish when it comes to these things too. I'm looking at it from an artist's perspective or writer's perspective, and I think most people that are in my camp have the same kind of fear of it because of protecting. Like, hey, man, let's. I spent a lifetime working on this craft and what I do, and now people can do it in a click of a button. So there's a little bit of jealousy with that too. I think it's like, hey, man, how come you're getting the easy way? I had to earn this stuff, but that's life, so
it is a weird thing because part of, I think with our experiences as people, the hardship and the work and kind of the grinding that we had to go through to develop work. But in doing that, we realized that what we actually developed was our character and we saw value in it. And I think there's a little bit of concern that others will miss out on that experience that we felt was really fundamental to who we are. And so that totally makes sense.
Jackie, your thoughts?
I do. I first of all, I love the fact that you are doing such a great job, Greg, of balancing between Michael's view of crazy and my view of forward progress in the world.
It comes from being crazy myself.
No. And I don't think I've ever met someone as accomplished in the tech space who said, I'm not really sure if I even like tech. That's awesome. I know that we just kind of dumped into the deep end. And so I appreciate you letting that happen. So maybe we need to backpedal up a little bit and pull back kind of to tiptoeing back in, like a beach entry of how do you think about how these pieces should work together, whether it's SEO or AI or all the different tech components, because, our audience, most of the people who listen to this, and I'm super impressed that we've gotten up to like about 15,000 downloads. And I think that's awesome. And so I think their marketing directors, their C-suite executives, they're not frontline boots on the ground doers, but they manage a team. And so what kind of things should they be learning to do a better job of that?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I think having an open environment to play and explore is really important because you're a manager. And if you have a whole team, you're kind of washed up anyways, unless you're one of those managers that you think you're like, I'm the best person who's ever done this. And now I'm going to teach 3 people to become number 2, 3, and 4 in the world at it. So I think a lot of people know that as a manager, your role is actually just to enable your team to really go into the deeper ends of the water. And I think the first thing is there needs to be permission to do so. And in order to get permission, I think before that, there has to be a declaration of safety. Like, hey, this is going to be for you to further your development and career, as opposed to the concern of like, will I be replaced? I actually think that companies are starting to get that. I don't think we're going to see hiring at the same rate that we've seen it historically, because you don't need to scale through people the same way that you needed to prior to AI. But I think a lot of companies, and this is definitely what SearchTides has done, like, we didn't really lay off anybody. We were kind of just like, hey, this is the crew. These are the homies. And like, as this stuff comes out, we're going to be able to produce more and we're going to be okay with that. And we're going to kind of like backfill the excess productivity that we'll have available. So I think the first thing as a manager is just to make it very clear that like, this is for the purpose of making your life easier. It's not for like squeezing you dry. And it's also not for a backdoor way to replace you. And then I think after that, it's just encouragement to go out there and mess around with it. And also it's not a replacement for your own knowledge. So I'll give a really good example with content creation. I will dive into tactics here because I think it makes sense to do so. So this is how we use ChatGPT to create content. And the current version of it. And so what the current version is, you can take basically the top 5 performing articles for a given search query, you can paste them into ChatGPT, and you can say, hey, can you tell me all of the subtopics that are being written about in this article, or transcribe a video and do the same thing there. And then you should start to see these overlapping topics that clearly have value because they're being rated highly, in this case, by a search engine. And then you can basically take something like the Google Content Helpfulness Update guidelines, where Google's like, hey, this is what we deem to be helpful content. It's based off of experience, expertise, trustworthiness, and authoritativeness. Upload that to ChatGPT and say, hey, this is kind of my marker for what I'm looking to do. I want to make sure that I'm adding in this layer of helpfulness. So now you kind of have an outline. Now you kind of have some guidelines that the machine is going to be able to help you with. Now you can kind of create what you're looking for. And then you can ask questions like, hey, can I add in more expertise here? Hey, where can I add in my own personal experience more? Hey, can you remove fluff from this article? Hey, can you, yeah, everybody loves that one. Hey, can you look at tell me what subtopics I've written about in this article and compare that to the list of that you gave me before and see what's missing there. Hey, what could be some really interesting visual ways that I could make some of these words come alive or represent something in these articles? So each question that I've asked, I have to know the SEO component to that, to know that it's valuable and to understand what I want the end product to look like. So my knowledge is still there. Also, I'm not like, hey, can you write this article? You can do that. That's a separate conversation. It's just not going to why do you think that would be the best? It could be good, but it's not going to be the best. So having something write something for you and, that's not going to be the best. I don't understand what the point of that is. So I'm guiding this thing and I'm almost using it as a teammate or something to bounce ideas back and forth with. But I'm driving, I'm dictating strategy. It's almost like a research assistant or an analyst for me. And I'm like, I know what I'm looking for. And I know how to get it if I was doing it manually. And now how can I do it in a way that just makes it faster for me? And I think that's the ethos of AI tools right now.
Yeah. Well, here's the big question, Greg. When you ask these queries, do you say please first?
I send smiley faces, there's no doubt as to.
I'm just saying, you got to be nice
where
to
I want to be on the kill list. It's late.
Thank you. Yeah. Can you please? I do find myself doing that though. I'll be in there and I'm like, can you please summarize the following, whatever. I mean, I'm like, what the hell am I doing? But you know what? I tend to get better responses when I'm nice.
Right. And you know why? So, I mean, there's probably a boring technical explanation why, which is if you scour the internet where people are being polite to each other, it's resulting in it creates a better result. And so this thing just learns off of data. Who knows?
I do have, Jackie, you have a question. I have one. Go ahead.
I just want to, it's really a comment for Michael, Greg. So Michael, what I'm hearing you say is that when you use please and thank you with the AI, you get a better result. And I would just like to share with you that if you did that with humans, the same thing would happen.
That's painting. I do that as well, but sometimes humans need a little more. You can't show too much love to humans because then they start needing it all the time.
Oh, is that the way that works? Okay.
Yeah, they start to be like, okay, you have to kind of.
I expect kindness and.
No, it's just, you got to withhold a little bit. You got to withhold.
Sure. That's a real good strategy.
It's all coming together now. Feel my pain, not too much love.
Yeah.
Well, the question I did have about SEO, because it's interesting because even here, I know enough about it to get me in trouble. I know it's important. I know the realities of it. I know how to write for it in some ways. But again, there's specialists out there. When we need specialists, we go to them. We say, hey, we have a heavy campaign. We want to get this results. We're going to go get the big guns in and work with our team to develop those things. But it comes from a design aspect, copy aspect, whatever. But I think of people that are in offices, and my question to you is, who should be involved? How do people get involved as a company, and what should people be thinking about for the betterment of SEO? Obviously, with content development. thought leadership, things like that, right? That all plays a part in it, right? And things that maybe people don't think about every day because, usually you think about the SEO guys in the corner over there doesn't talk to anybody. And he's like, he knows everything that nobody else knows, and like, hey, let's just send it to John because John can figure out all the SEO stuff and nobody else really knows about it. And nobody else really does anything with it,
Yeah, no, it's true. It's a good question. There's really if we think about that, the triangle that we have at SearchTides with the foundational layer and then experience, influence era, and then the human era. At the bottom is foundational SEO. You need all of them today to be successful. And at the bottom is foundational SEO, which is really 4 different categories. So one of them is the power and authority of your website, which we would think about in terms of domain authority or domain rating. It's a scale from 0 to 100. That is only dictated by quality links. That is the only way to increase that number. So the first thing that people need to ask themselves when they're putting together an SEO program is, if I go and run my domain authority or domain rating and I have a 20 and everybody else in the industry has a 70, that's not going to be an effective program. Mm-hmm. So, and link building is probably the number one most overlooked thing in SEO because it's very hard. It's very brute force because it's one-by-one outreach, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one category. The next category is content creation. This is the foundational layer that we're looking at. So the content creation is literally the existence of content on the page. Like, you need to have relevant content to be in the search results or to show up in a ChatGPT answer, whatever it is. The third is on-site optimization. And that is the technical SEO. Well, there's on-site optimization, then technical, which is page load time, our site architecture, all that stuff. Those latter two, that's what everybody thinks about when it's SEO. Ironically, that's the stuff that's at the end of the race. So if you're working at a big company on a large, powerful website, that's actually all you think about because your domain authority and your domain rating are close. So that's kind of like, but for other companies in this era, the first question I'd be asking is like, are you generating a meaningful amount of non-branded traffic right now? If so, you have a huge opportunity. If not, you should perform analysis to see how much it makes sense to do so for this purpose of generating more search traffic. Whereas you have what I think are additional options in that area. I think the smart people in SEO are going to evolve to understand where the future of marketing is. And it's all dictated by SEO. It's all dictated by basically like various algorithm updates that have come out in the last 10 years that have just beaten the heck out of people. If you try to cut corners or you're not doing things in an authentic way, AI tools is going to enable fewer people to start a company. It's going to enable companies to not hire as many people moving forward. It's going to enable superstars to be like 5 superstars. And so if you think about how this plays out in like the macro sense, did you guys ever see the movie Idiocracy?
Oh, of course.
Okay. Well, so in the movie Idiocracy, they have Costco. And Costco's so big, you can go get a school degree there. You can go to the DMV there. You can buy literally anything in the world. And so that will happen more and more, pending some sort of legislation from the government. But that will happen more and more within an industry, no matter what. So basically, you'll have mid caps be bought by large caps because that's going to be a efficient use of capital. And then on the other side, it'll be the same exact thing with content. It used to be 3 television channels, then it was 12, then it was 50, then it was 500. And now with YouTube, it's literally millions. What is that? That's consumer choice, dramatically increasing over time. So what happens when there's now fewer people necessary to create a company in a given market? There's more companies. What does that mean? Consumer choice goes up. What does that mean? It's now harder to get the same customer in an industry than it used to be. So you have 2 groups. Consumer group number 1, I don't want to think about anything. Okay, good. You go to Costco. Consumer group number 2, I want to make the right decision for me. Okay, well, now you're analyzing like 5 times or 10 times as many companies. So as a brand, what becomes most important for you? It's number 1, your brand equity becomes most important. What do you stand for? Who are you? What is that? Number 2, in terms of the value that you are providing for the customer, prospective client, consumer, whatever it is, you must be unilaterally focused on just being as good as possible to them, period, end of story. It's not being best in class. It's just, how do I always do this always? How do I provide value over and over and over again? And so in the world of content, that's going to be meeting your customer where they are in their customer journey with content in whatever form works for them and makes sense for them in whatever format works for them, whether that's going to be receiving a search query from Google, whether that's going to be on Pinterest for this company, whether that's going to be on video for this other company. It doesn't matter whether it's an email, whether it's on podcasts, it doesn't matter. You have to be there providing value, and you have to do so from a place of authenticity. You can't do it because you want to make money. You have to do it because you want to be helpful. And those are the companies that are going to win. And so luckily for me, because I hate, lowercase, no, not a big fan of, I'm not a big fan of the way that like PE companies and VC companies think about balance sheets and profit and loss sheets, where they basically try to quantify everything. And it's just a bunch of people who have been to, they just finished their MBA program 15 years ago, and they haven't ever been operators in business. So they're not entirely sure what's going on, but if this number goes up, that's bad. And if this one goes down, that's good. So I think that way of thinking is dying, because that's not value and consumer focused. That's margin focused and profit focused. And that's cool. And that works today, but not when there's 10 times as many companies tomorrow and the barrier goes up. So I think that's where all of this stuff is going tomorrow. Ironically, SEO has been positioned where like we understand that with complete lucidity. We totally get that because that has been beaten into our minds from Google algorithm updates over the past 5 to 10 years around writing from authenticity, writing from a place of trust. Who are you? Why do you deserve to be talking about this topic? What do you bring something unique and valuable to the table? I think a lot of people who are worried about their top of funnel content going away, yeah, you didn't bring anything unique to the table.
Praise. Yeah, I saw something really interesting the other day that's just been
I was thinking it the whole time too. I was like, preach on, Greg, go. Everything you were saying, like, yeah, we're totally on board with especially the branding part of it. That was awesome.
Well, because I was thinking, I read this the other day, and it's really kind of been resonating with me that we used to create content for other people to read. Then we created content to get Google's attention. Now I think there's this philosophy that we're going to have to create content. Our AI is going to create content for your AI to tell you that this is worth reading. And so it changes how we approach it, and it makes it too much about the machine. But I think you've got this great human element that's keeping it based on humanity.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll use an example. So in SEO, there's this concept called the EEAT. And the two most important letters out of that for me are experience and expertise. And this kind of goes into like, what can you bring uniquely to the table as an individual, but also as a company? Because you're going to need it in the future, unless you get to like, mid-cap size and then you're an acquisition target, or you become the large cap, or you are the large cap. And then you're just like, hello, we're Costco. You might know us from going out of your house and going either to the left or to the right. But so here's the example. I walk into the pharmacy and I have a prescription. I go up to the pharmacist and I say, hey, can you fill this? And the pharmacist says to me, yeah, totally. Just to let you know, though, there's a generic version of this available. It's 10% of the cost. Works just as well. You should get that. That's the pharmacist using their expertise to guide me. I go back into the pharmacy and say, hey, I have this prescription. Can you fill it? The pharmacist says, totally. But just to let you know, every time I do that, the person takes it, nothing happens. They come back in. I recommend this other thing. It works great. You should just use this now. That's the pharmacist using their experience. And both of those two things are inherently human. That is not an aggregator of information. That's not an encyclopedia. That's, I've been doing this. I have this understanding of how things are, literally not always theoretical, that there's actual real world differences here. And that's the value that you should be putting into your content with a capital C, whether it's written, whether it's video, whether it's graphical, whether it's design-based, whether it's an email. Like if you are regurgitating, you can do that sometimes because repetition is important. But if you're really trying to become the best in class, you kind of have to be the most qualified. And if you're not the most qualified, then I would urge you to start becoming more qualified, because it's so crystal clear to us that is specifically where the future is going. Like it's just capitalistic structures. They start with this thing called an unsaturated industry, which is defined by this thing called excess profits. So think about Facebook when advertising just came out and everybody was like, all you need to do is literally put an ad up there and then people will buy. And then everybody came in. And so you get more people coming in, you get more competitors coming in, which increases the size of the market because more people get pulled into. Facebook makes more money. Now they're going to try to promote Facebook more, which is going to get more users, which is going to increase the size of the market, which is going to draw in more competitors. And then you get to this point called a saturated industry. And the way that that works is you basically have a smaller piece of the pie at the top, which is taken mostly by a few winners. And then you have the rest of the pie, which is kind of left for an ever increasing amount of other companies. And this is literally Google, where you're like, hey, being on page 1, number 3 versus number 10, world of difference. But it's also literally, it's all capitalism. It's all businesses. That's why bigger companies try to buy big companies to get bigger, because they get a bigger piece of a bigger pie. And that's why the bar gets raised over time, because more people enter a space, which means that the threshold required to be successful simply goes up because there's more people there. And that is exactly what AI is going to do in the across all of these markets.
Well, I think what's happened too is I think we're in an age of false prophets, and when it comes to marketing and technology, because everybody has a megaphone right now. And so you talk about how do you become the authority and how do you establish yourself as these things? Well, sometimes it's hard to tell, in certain industries, because again, somebody may have, they struck something like by accident, they had a video go viral. So now they have an audience of 100,000 people. And they start to parlay that or up to 500, whatever. And they start to build up their following. And now, because of that, they are now the expert. Well, I did it, so I must know everything. So now I'm going to tell everybody else how to do it, how easy it is to have 1 million followers and how easy it is to become TikTok famous or whatever it is. And well, because this is how you do it. And they start teaching their philosophies and their methods. I saw a guy the other day and he cracks me up. And because I do like TikTok, I enjoy it for certain things. But there was a guy on there and he keeps popping in things. I look at marketing things and he's some guru guy, but one day he was talking about, he always leans in close to the mic and he talks real soft and he says, digital agencies are dead. This is why, and whatever. And then he said, SEO is dead. This is why. Nice. Websites are dead. Yeah. And he's doing all these things. And then he comes back a week later and he's like, okay, they're not dead, but he's saying it differently. It's just constantly making up stuff based on his own whatever to get likes, to get clicks, to sound like an authority. You get my point? And the more that you put that stuff out there, the more people go, oh, he must know something. And it's complicated, basically.
I agree. And I think we're in an early phase of that. And so one analogy that I draw is none of us we're like not native cell phone users. Like the first phone I ever got, I didn't even know I had text message capabilities on it for a year after I got it. Like I had no idea what was going on. And but kids these days grew up with a phone, and the world that they're living in is dramatically different than ours. I'm not making commentary on what that world is. I'm simply saying, like, for us, we're looking at that person online, and we're in this phase right now of society where they're going to get through they're going to trick people, like, choose your percentage. 80% of the time, they're going to trick people. But it used to be like 100% of the time, because nobody had any idea that somebody could get up there with that amount of following, saying these things, and rent a Lamborghini and a house to shoot in for the day. But now we've started to understand that is something that's possible. And so, but it still gets people. So now it's not 100%, maybe it's 80%. And then eventually it'll be, I don't know, 20% or something like that. And it'll just hang out there. So those sorts of problems won't go away because they are inherently human problems. But we're more aware as consumers than we've ever been. If you want an advertisement on something, talk into your phone and open Instagram, and you will have an advertisement about whatever it is that you talked into your phone about. We are more self-aware as consumers than we've ever been before. And that leads to okay, gurus, the reckoning is starting to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad y'all let me attend this. I appreciate it.
I feel like it's been a 3-person participation. You've been guiding. You're the puppet master. I see what's going on.
Oh, I mean, I've definitely
yeah.
led y'all, but I usually talk more. But Michael has been so energized by this topic. I'm letting it happen. It's been good.
Yeah, it's interesting, and yeah, and I know we've gone over the place, but like I said, it's funny how, and obviously as an SEO specialist in your company and what you do, you've had to migrate and change and evolve. You can't just, okay, we're going to, like you mentioned earlier, those 3 different platforms you were talking about. We talk about that a lot too. We'll go into an assessment for a client, and we'll do a web grader just to kind of give them an overview of things. And they may check out 100 across the board. Man, great safety, great this, great that, great that, great that. I'm like, okay, that's all super, but your website still sucks. Like, like you can check all these boxes, but if that's all you're doing just to meet, okay, we got a good grade. What about everything else that's going on? And with you, I'm sure you've had to go and find how do I put more pieces to the puzzle together, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've so we have an agency arm at SearchTides, and we've always come from how do we get the best results, and that's what we care about. And as a result of that ethos, we are oftentimes met with skepticism that we are avoiding things like, hey, here's your checklist thing. You got 2 gold stars. Way to go. You got a 93 rating. We're just like, no, these are the 3 things that you need to do. And we're just going to yell at you until you do them, because that's the best use of everyone's time. Because if you don't do these 3 things, nothing else matters. So I think no matter which way you do it, there's always going to be just what people are used to. I think that's what's so much. Like, we are so aware as a society that so much is in flux and is changing right now. We're all kind of just talking it out. We're just like, ooh, shit's getting crazy out there. Like, am I the only one who thinks this? And then we're like, oh, I guess not. So like, and I think I think it's unsettling because we don't like change. We don't want to go outside of our caves and get our heads ripped off by a saber-toothed tiger that wasn't there the day before. Like, we're not about that. So I think ultimately that's kind of happening in a really grand scale, which is just exasperated because we're so connected on the internet and through different medias and channels. And we can kind of be like, are other people thinking this too? And we're not encouraged to repress our emotions the same way that we like historically have been. So a lot of this stuff is coming out. And we're also making AI that looks like people, and that's freaky as shit. So it's just like, it's also, so we're getting it from both sides over here.
Brave new world.
Yeah, hopefully with less Soma.
Greg, I have a question. Going back to when you were going through that very nice explanation of how to use AI as a brainstorming partner, do you have available like a prompt guide or resources where people could maybe go to your website and download some helpful tips?
Yes, most likely by the time that this is out, we hold monthly events, and we will have held a monthly event where we actually have, I think, like 4 or 5 of those exact things.
Awesome. And so where would people go to find those?
People can go to searchtides.com. You can find us on LinkedIn at SearchTides, on YouTube at SearchTides. You can sign up for our newsletter. We have a lot of, this is how we think the future's shaping up. We think that it's exhilarating. And part of exhilaration is fear. So that's definitely like, we're not denying that it's like a scary, wild time that we're going through. We feel we pretty clearly see the path forward. And we think that it's one of empowerment. And we also think that there's a lot of potential traps that we can fall into as society. So we're not like obtuse to that reality. But ultimately, we think we have some good ideas on how others can use this technology to interact with the world professionally, and do it in ways that they don't feel like they're losing autonomy on who they are.
I love that. How big is your team?
Put me on the spot.
Sorry. Ballpark me. Give me a range.
Like
I'm just
40
curious.
people or something like that. Like, yeah, probably around there.
Are y'all centralized in office work, or are y'all all over the place?
We have been remote for a while, actually. So we were remote before it was cool to be remote. And I think we have every continent except for Antarctica. So if anyone is listening and lives in Antarctica, go to SearchTides.com, get in touch with me. Yeah.
Because really, you need to be fully global. You got to just monopolize that Antarctica market.
Right. We're thinking 2025 is the year that we do our first expedition there and just kind of see what kind of global talent is available. But, it's still in the planning phases.
Right.
Well, depending on which conspiracy people you listen to, there may be things in Antarctica that we don't know yet. So we'll just see.
Right. Well, or maybe right. So maybe we just need like the underground base aliens to hit us up. Exactly. And then we'll be good. Yeah. We'll be solid.
Greg knows he's in the loop.
No, Greg is humoring you. And I sort of appreciate it, but also stop encouraging him, Greg.
No, I don't. Look, I'm here for, if I got on at the top of the show and I said, the arrogance that I could even have to have an opinion about this, but my belief is that we're just here to experience life, like everything. It's all part of it. And so it's all fun and part of it. Yeah.
So going down the rabbit hole of the thought that, AI does all the work and we get to better enjoy life. I see a lot of times people who have reached a certain point in their career and their age. And so they've taken a step back from work. They've retired, and maybe early, maybe middle, maybe late, but there's this rapid decline that happens after. So yeah. How do we avoid that? If we don't have the purpose of work anymore, how do we continue to get the purpose in our lives? And I know this is way off the topic, and I'm just curious about your thoughts.
No, I think it's a really important question. And my response would be, that's what happens when we think our purpose is work. And so purpose, who's to say what that is? Typically we decide. And so some of us have decided that is our purpose, and we got a lot of pride from it, and we got a lot of enjoyment from it, and we have a lot of passion about it. And for some of us, it is truly all encompassing. And that person, I would say, definitely don't stop working. But also that type of person is going to be like, great, now I have this robotic army that can allow me to do more and more of the thing that I like doing and that I really get attached to. Like, there's not a forced retirement for people who want to be in the mix and furthering humanity through whatever. So I think that doesn't go away. And I think for others, we will be faced with this, depending on who you ask, a reminder or a reconciliation that we are maybe, what else is there? What additional stuff is there? Who are we beyond what we do every day, which has really become such a big part of so many people. So it's not an easy transition. And it's, by the way, not one that I think is coming anytime soon either. I also think that is where my optimism comes from, because it's we could have an opportunity to treat each other nicely again as a species, to see common ground between each other, to work on things that will better humanity as a whole. I'm yeah, that's cool. I'm interested in seeing how that plays out.
Agree.
That all sounds good. I just, the first part, I don't think we need any more internal reflection than we already have going on in the world. I think we're all immersed in that part of it, But the external part of working, I think you talk about not working. That's effort. That's work. There's a grind in everything. And I'm a grinder. I believe in that. I mean, it's who my family is, who I am. It's my kids are, hopefully. And that's where you get things. You get them from grinding. My process. When I teach people about creativity or anything like that, it's not a magic pill. I'm creative. No, creativity is problem solving. Artistry is learning a craft, and you don't learn that just by saying, I want to be an artist. You have to work at it. You have to earn it. You have to, and I think that's the part, like you said earlier, that's the humanity part. And if your thing is making the world better, that's a grind too. There's right. Effort. I mean, nobody's going to build the hut by themselves. Nobody's going to put in that water system by themselves. AI is not going to do it. So you have to have the want and the will and the grind for those things,
Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, the 10,000 hours is not going away. Mm-hmm. It's not going to magically turn into 100. mastery is still, it still requires mastery, and that requires a tremendous amount of diving into things. We might in the future dive into different things than we dive into today, which probably is different than what we dove into in the past.
I think we all want the matrix button. You plug in and it just feeds into karate, and now you know karate. Yeah.
I'd like to know how to drive a helicopter without,
be awesome.
Maybe while blindfolded. I know that wasn't in the movie, but I don't see why I couldn't also do that.
No, I mean, again, those sound great, but what do we lose for the great? Where does that sacrifice come in?
And I think I think that we are pretty resilient as a species. And I think one of the things that doesn't get talked about a lot with COVID was that we were basically told, and this was in March or April or whatever, regardless of what wound up being the case, we're like, hey, everything is different forever now. All of these fundamental things that you thought were true are not. You must change and adapt today. And as a society, we did that dramatically quickly, incredibly quickly. And so I look at that and I say, well, that really gives me a lot of encouragement for what we are capable of when we put our minds to it. I take the perspective that a lot of the world's problems that we have right now, when there's enough visibility on them, we will solve them, simply because we're collectively really great at doing that as a species. We're kind of undefeated, we're kind of still here. We're kind of undefeated. I know that doesn't jive with you, Michael, but post Atlantis, we're undefeated as a society. And so there's something powerful about that. And I think there's something very real about that too. And so I that's the lens that I look forward with a lot of of where my optimism comes from.
That's awesome. I appreciate that.
Greg, yeah. I do feel like mom when I say, I'm so glad y'all made friends. Michael, you have a new friend. You have a new bestie. I'll coordinate with Greg's mom for a play date.
From that friend list?
You're on the friend list, man. Y'all are in. Great. I'll call your mom, coordinate a play date.
No, he's talking about you. He's like, you're excluding yourself. Do you not include yourself?
Yeah. You're just like, I don't want anything to do with this. That was clear to me.
I have a lot of friends. Michael doesn't have as many friends, so we have to find playmates for him.
Perfect. We can have some play dates.
I mean, you've met him. You appreciate. He's not the go make new friends across the room guy. So when you get to know him, he's awesome. But
yeah, how did we get here? This
is a serenation for you, right?
That's awesome. Greg, I am shocked to look up and realize that almost an hour has flown by. I don't know how the heck that happened, but you have been awesome. This is exactly the information that we were hoping you'd bring to the table, except that you far surpassed my expectations. I know that you told us earlier about the guides and the resources, but for the people who stick around to the end, tell them again how to find you, connect with you, because obviously others will want to be your friend too.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So you can find us at SearchTides.com. You can sign up for our newsletter. We're on LinkedIn at SearchTides. We're on YouTube at SearchTides. We have monthly digital events. We are a hub for all things SEO, search, AI, and basically the future of commerce. And we feel like we have some good understandings of where business is going to go and where marketing is going to go, and really where the next evolution of professional, how we interact with companies is going. And I do think it's going to be more challenging to be successful in that environment, but I think there's a straightforward way to be very successful in that environment. And we talk about that at SearchTides.
Okay. That sounds great. For everybody still listening, Michael has occasionally decided to try out different sign-offs because he doesn't believe that people are listening. So, Michael, what do you want to try today? What code word? You're gonna give him a car? You're gonna buy him lunch? What are you doing for the people who stick around to the end?
I don't know, because there's so many good things that came out of this. There was Atlantis, there was Antarctica. I mean, there's several things that were really good. But I do want to say this. So, and if anybody is still listening, Greg just was a great job as far as branding and messaging goes. We asked him 3 times what he did or what they do, and he threw it out there succinctly and word perfect messaging of what they do how they can benefit you and where they're going in the future. I thought that was really well done, Greg. Just it's noticed. You're definitely on message, and you said it maybe a little different every time, but it was always the same background of it. So, and you enlightened that you're not just an SEO company, you're more than that. And I think that was really nice. Well done.
Okay,
Thank you.
I have nothing else to add.
Okay, then I think that if anybody does stick around to the end, I'll buy them a cup of coffee.
Nice.
Yeah. All right, good. Greg, thank you for your time. For everybody who has learned something from him, be sure to connect with him, reach out to get all of your SEO, AI, XYZ questions answered by the always awesome Greg Brooks.
Thanks so much, Jaci and Michael, for having me on.